So, sorry about getting the video version of this out late. It's just, it's midterms right now, and I got a lot of stuff on my plate right now. So, that was why I haven't been able to do this. But I'm recording this after the Niners game. And first off, I want to say, golly, a lot of people just try and find anything they can to criticize Cam Ward. But also, I do want to say that I felt like that this head coaching profile, the one that I made an article over, could not have come at a more perfect time than this 2 week stretch, right? So, anyway, let's get into today's video. So, what's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Titans Rundown. I am your host, Mike McCamey. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about the head coaching profile of current Chargers defensive coordinator Jesse Minter. Now, here's the thing, right? Had been banging the drum for him during the first couple of weeks of the season, whenever it seemed like that he was, kind of a rising star. And his star fell a little bit at the midseason, but it seems like it's all the way back up right now. It may even be higher than it was at the beginning of the season. And, like I said in my article, most people at the beginning of the season had him only second to Joe Brady as a first timer. Obviously, Joe Brady's star has fallen. But Minter's, even though it took a little dip in midseason, it came right back up immediately. So that's nice to see. And I'm happy that I made it right as his star came back up whenever he just, coordinated the defense that forced 4 interceptions against Jalen Hurts and coordinated the defense that forced Patrick Mahomes and his offense to 13 points. That was just something that I liked. Anyway, now that we got that all that out of the way, let's get into his actual coaching profile. So we're going to start out by talking about his background. Where did he come from? How did he get to this point, if you will? So starting out, he got his first job at Notre Dame as a defensive intern in 2006. Okay, humble start, not really too much going on there. Then again, part of this humble start, he goes to Cincinnati as a graduate assistant from 2007 to 2008. And then after that, he goes to Indiana State to be a linebackers coach from 2009 to 2010. But after these 2 years at Indiana State, he gets the offer to go be the defensive coordinator. He's there for 2 years from 2011 to 2012. His defenses are kind of fine. They aren't like, well, okay. Second year, his defense was really good. First year, it was, it was fine. Then after that, he gets called up by Georgia State to be their defensive coordinator. And while the defense was kind of inconsistent in his time there, it really ended on a high note because his side of the ball was probably the only bright spot of Georgia State's season during 2016. So that's something to point out. So after that time with Georgia State, he goes on to be a defensive assistant for the Baltimore Ravens, and he stays there from 2017 to 2018, but then he gets promoted after that to an assistant DB's coach in 2019, and again, like, he continued to climb the ladder in Baltimore. And then during the COVID year, he was the defensive backs coach in 2020. Again, he's had NFL experience, right? And that is something that is valuable. But no, anyway, and he's had experience under the Harbaughs, a lot of it too. So after that, he goes to Vanderbilt to go be their defensive coordinator. Now, look, pre-Diego Pavia and pre-Clark Lee's turnaround of the program, it's really hard to judge a 2021 Vanderbilt coach because that team was so stinking bad from a talent standpoint. Like, they would have maybe been bowl eligible in the AAC, let alone the SEC, right? So I don't like to give him too bad of a time. Like, I think he had the third worst defense in the nation, but I can't bring myself to say, yeah, that was all on Jesse Minter and Clark Lee, even. Like, that was all on them, and they were terrible. No, I can't do that. Especially after he gets called up by John Harbaugh's brother, Jim Harbaugh, and says, hey, you want to be the defensive coordinator at Michigan? And he takes that job, and he is absolutely phenomenal. Really, really good at his job for those 2 years. He wins national championship in his last year, and then after that year, he gets called up to the NFL to be the defensive coordinator for Jim Harbaugh in Los Angeles. Looking back, it was a terrible move by Michigan to not keep him in the building to be the next head coach and instead decide to go for Sharon Moore, which, my gosh, that aged terribly. And there are so many posts about that situation that have also come out that have aged terribly. But anyway, he goes on to be the Chargers defense coordinator. He crushes it. And I do want to put this out there. This is subject to change because there is a chance that, like, maybe at Michigan, since that job just opened up for obvious reasons, maybe Jesse Minter has some interest in that job and he takes that away from one of Jedd Fisch, or who else is there that's up for that job? Kenny Dillingham. But even then, he decided to get out of that race. So, like, that could get a little weird, but I do think that he will be an NFL coaching candidate more than he will be a college football coaching candidate, because there's part of me that thinks that even with all of the stuff that he's done in college, there's part of me that thinks that he likes the NFL better, just personally. Anyway, getting into the positives of Jesse Minter. First off, his defensive system. It's a 4-3 with a lot of blitzing, and it's based on sometimes reaction by the players, if you will, about what exactly is happening. And it's just a really strong defensive system. Mike Macdonald has really popularized the type of system that he runs. And even then, Jesse Minter may be more blitz happy than Mike Macdonald is. So you got to take that into consideration. But again, there's not enough to say about the defensive system. It's so strong. It's just so stinking solid overall. And I really just like it. I don't know how else to put it. My biggest positive, though, personally, is the Harbaugh tree. Look, okay, obviously there have been some duds coming from that tree, but a very similar candidate to Jesse Minter, like Mike Macdonald, has absolutely thrived in the NFL with the Seattle Seahawks. Now, also part of that is whenever you go there as a new head coach, it's probably easier to lay down the law whenever you have a GM that has had a lot of success in the past and ownership that understands what they're doing, right? So you got to take that into consideration, but he's been killing it over there. I mean, heck, they just won a game without scoring a touchdown. That's really impressive, honestly. And again, the Harbaugh tree has just really produced great assistant coaches, and it has produced good head coaches as well. And I think that Jesse Minter could be another one of those. And again, that Harbaugh tree, just you got to trust it whenever you see it. Last thing that I'll mention is the experience that Jesse Minter brings to the table. How many, I want to know from the viewers, let me know in the comment section, how many of y'all knew that Jesse Minter had 12 years of experience as a defensive coordinator? I really want to know that, because I honestly did not realize that until A, doing research for this episode, but also B, just, I don't know, just thinking of him as a coach. He's very young too. It's not like he's some old 50 to 60-year-old dude Todd Monken or something like that. But he has had so much defensive coordinator experience. All of it's been at the college level, except for 2 years in the NFL. But I do think that will help him as a head coach, just because he's had so much experience, having control over his side of the ball, at least mostly, that I think that it really helps him out just in the long run. And I think that he's rubbed shoulders with a lot of head coaches and a lot of philosophies, and rubbing shoulders with Mike Macdonald in some ways is definitely helpful. So anyway, I really like his experience. Okay, negatives though. Obviously, even with the fact that he's more experienced than a lot of the first-time head coaches can say, he can definitely hang that over the heads of a Chris Shula or a Clint Kubiak if they were to come in and be interviewed. Even though he can hang that above their heads, he still is a first-time head coach, and that is always going to be a problem in this hiring cycle. And again, that is going to be a problem. There's going to be the thought in the back of the mind of somebody like Chad Brinker, heck, even Mike Borgonzi, seeing what happened the last time that a head coach was brought in that was a first-timer like that. And there's always going to be that worry in the back of their head. It's not as bad with Chris Shula, who doesn't have that much experience coordinating, doesn't have that much experience in general, but still, and also has the last name Shula, which doesn't help his case just personally, because I think that brings back bad memories. But it really does not help his case being a first timer. I don't know how else to say it. That's really it. And again, I don't know what else to say, but again, just the first time aspect of it, that will definitely scare Chad Brinker away. I would be shocked if there isn't at least, like, they've been talked about how there's a little bit of conflict in the building, which, by the way, I've seen a lot of people trying to say that's like some huge negative or something. I think that's a good thing. Let them fight for their guys. And here's the thing, right? Whenever they finally come to the conclusion, yes, we should hire this guy, then you'll know that it was a group decision, and that even though they had bashed in philosophies, they were able to come to an agreement on one person, right? That's just something that I wanted to put out there, that I don't think it is the worst thing in the world that there is actual conflict over the hiring, right? But anyway, I would be shocked if I wouldn't be shocked if Borgonzi really wanted to go for a first timer and he really liked one of Jesse Minter, Chris Shula, or heck, even maybe not Clint Kubiak, but one of those two in the hiring process. And then Brinker stepped in and was just like, I don't think we should go this road. We need to go with some experience, somebody that we know is at least going to stabilize the organization, right? And I would not be shocked about that in the slightest. But again, I don't think that'll happen, but it still is something. Well, I don't know if it'll happen, right? But it is still something that I keep consistently in the back of my head. So again, first time hire, kind of questionable. My next thing is his offensive coordinator hire. Now, look, okay, I'm not saying that because you're a defensive mind automatically means that you are not a good enough head coaching candidate. I don't really prefer either way, whether it's offensive or defensive mind. Maybe I lean slightly offensive mind, but it is only very slightly. Because I do think that if you hire the right head coach as a defensive mind, that he is going to get an offensive mind that can at least stabilize the ship offensively and can call just good enough plays so that way your quarterback can still be as good as he hopefully is, right? I think that's something that comes with it. But with Jesse Minter, he doesn't have that many connections around the league, let alone enough connections to bring in like some amazing offensive coordinator, right? This is where he falls short with somebody like a Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh, he comes from the Shanahan tree. He has connections to Mike LaFleur, and he has connections to other just offensive minds around the NFL. Heck, he could probably lure Clint Kubiak. He could probably lure, not Clint Kubiak, but his younger brother, Clay Kubiak in, right? He could bring in probably a fired head coach, honestly. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if he could bring in Brian Daboll, let alone I mean, like, that's something with Robert. That's a different thing with Robert Saleh. I covered him last week. I'll leave a card right there. But again, like, I don't know how to get this across, but that offensive coordinator hire is so important for this organization. And those two guys, and Robert Saleh has those connections. Chris Shula has the McVay tree. I mean, heck, even Vance Joseph, who I don't even know if I'll cover, but he has the connection to Davis Webb, right? All these guys have great connections throughout the league, if you will. But I just don't think that Jesse Minter has those connections, right? It's a problem for me, at least. Like, Jesse Minter, I don't know how to say it, doesn't have connections. Like, he has connections to the Chargers tree. I don't think there's anybody that's really that interesting in there. I don't think that there's too many interesting people, heck, even in the Ravens tree as assistants. My biggest reach is that maybe he made a connection with Davis Webb, being division rivals and all that, and maybe he could convince him, or that Brian Daboll, who apparently was really in love with Cam Ward during the draft process, really, since he really wanted Cam Ward, wants to go to Tennessee, no matter who the head coach is, and be like, hey, I want to be your offensive coordinator, right? But who knows with that? But that's something that I worry about with Minter. It's the OC hire. Not saying that's bad that he's an offensive mind. I am just saying that even if you go a defensive mind, there are a lot of better options whenever it comes to offensive coordinator connections. And my last thing that I'll mention is that I do sometimes question his leadership. I don't know how to describe it, but every time that I see him, he's calm and composed, and that's fine, right? Like, I'm completely fine with a calm and composed coach, but he doesn't come off as a dude that's going to get up in front of a locker room and inspire them and rally the troops and like get everybody excited, right? He doesn't come off as that to me. And I just think that is something that I would personally worry about as, a fan, especially after seeing so many so corny videos of Brian Callahan trying to give hype up speeches, or his first introductory press conference, or his post game victory speeches, which he had like 4 of those. Like, every time that I saw Callahan try and be motivational, it was always really awkward, and I always worried. Like whenever I realized, hey, Callahan's not going to cut it, part of me was just like, yeah, I should have been a little bit more worried about just, his like hype attitude, right? So again, I just whenever I see a calm and a composed coach, I have that worry in the back of my head, like, what if that calm composure is too calm, too composed? What if he is not fiery enough and he just comes off as like a silent dude that, he'll be like, hey, great win, guys. Let's just keep rolling, right? Like one of those guys. So again, it has worked before. It's just something that worries me. Overall, I feel like that out of all of the first timers, he is potentially the most likely. I mean, look, I made a awful take at first with Chris Shula about him being one of the lesser likely ones. I actually think that he is second to Minter, but I do think that Minter is probably the most likely to get the head coaching job if it's anybody. I think that the experience as a defensive coordinator combined with other things like, him being with the Harbaugh tree and all that stuff, the Mike Macdonald stuff, I think that all three of those things combined into one seriously give him a huge chance of being one of the only first-timer head coaches that our staff genuinely considers. And I do think that I'll take Mike Kafka off of the head coaching list because it doesn't seem like that, because I've said that my Final Four for just the past couple of weeks, I thought it was going to come down to, man, let me think about this. Mike McCarthy, Matt Nagy. I know y'all don't like that one. Trust me, I don't either. Again, I can get into that all day, but I may make a short about him just to be like, hey, I don't like this guy. But it's those two. I think I said Chris Shula was the third, and my fourth was Mike Kafka. I'm going to pull Mike Kafka out because of how badly he's done as the interim head coach of the New York Giants, and I'm going to slide right in Jesse Minter. I think that is probably the Final Four that you are looking at. Who do I think will end up being hired? Well, I'm actually covering him next week. So anyway, I would personally really like the hire, and I think that if there's anybody in the first timers that just screams stability to me, it is Jesse Minter. He's a guy that I think will come in. I think that he will, soften the ship. And even if he doesn't come in and be like, some like insane, awesome head coach like his counterpart, Mike Macdonald, was, I still just genuinely believe that he will at least bring some stability to an organization that desperately needs it. And honestly, that is probably the biggest thing that I look into with this hire. That is my most important trait, is the stability of it. Because here's the thing, right? We can talk about, is he, a genius on his side of the ball? Is he dominant or anything? Like, look, we can talk about that all day. But the truth is, the stability of a head coach, it's just, that value is immeasurable. And that is just the thing that I look for the most, just because this team, before anything, just needs some stability. After the disaster of instability that was Brian Callahan and Ran Carthon, who ran the organization like I run the rebuilds during my Madden rebuilds, right? So again, that's just what I'm looking for, stability. But anyway, that's it for today's video. I have Instagram and Twitter under the Titans Rundown. If y'all want to check out my podcast, I'll have that linked in the description as well. If you look on my YouTube channel, you'll see my weekly episodes for the podcast. And also, if you want to see my articles, you want to see the article version of this, where I go deeper into his background about, where his defense is ranked and all that stuff and all of that, then I'll have that linked in the description. Also. So anyway, that's going to do it all for me. This has been a rundown of your Tennessee Titans. I love y'all, and tighten up.